Welcome to the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. The vision of this podcast is to provide tools on how to become successful in your finances, business, leadership development, and much more. A little bit about me: I grew up in the hood, homeless at the age of 14. I made a choice not to become a product of my environment. And today, I am a successful businessman, community leader, and inspirational speaker. It is my desire to encourage and empower you to unlock your greatness. So tune in and enjoy the show. And welcome back to another episode of the Desire to Dream podcast. I'm your host, Lo Wilder. And today I have a very special guest. You know, that's right. Two individuals who are just doing amazing things. They have a wonderful podcast. It's called Married into Crazy. I have Snooks and Lovey all the way out from the West Coast. How are y'all doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, doing very well. Very blessed.
Oh, absolutely. That's awesome, man. So, definitely an honor to have you all here on the show, and we'll just get right into it, kind of share your love story and how you all met, and I love to hear how that happened and how long you've been married.
So you want to hear her story or the truth?
I was about to say, you want to hear
Right.
the truth?
I want to hear
I'll tell
both.
it.
I want to hear both.
Well, we've been married for, we just celebrated 25 years at the beginning of the year. So we're coming up on 26 in January.
Beautiful.
As a matter of fact, we're finally, here it is August, and we're finally going to truly celebrate. We're leaving the country this weekend to go to Barbados to celebrate.
Yeah.
Wow. 26
So if you
years.
wanna
Well,
tell-
congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
Do you want to jump into it?
So, I worked with a close friend of his mother's,
Okay.
and just one day out of the blue, she was like, "There's this guy that I want you to meet," and I was like, "For what?" And she's like, "Oh, he's a nice guy, blah blah blah. He would be perfect for you," just kind of going on like that. And I was like, "No, thank you. I'm fine."
Right.
And she just never left that alone. And unbeknownst to me, they were kind of doing the same thing to Lovey, telling him about me. And she gave me his phone number, and she was like, "Oh, you should call him." And this was during the time where, for me, that was not politically correct, I'll say, for the girl to call the guy. I'm kind of
Right. Old school.
Yeah, a little bit in regards to that. So I was like, "Oh, he think I'm finna call him? He is tripping. I'm not calling him. I'm good." So he showed up at our, you want to tell? Because he keeps moving his hand. So that
Oh,
means he
yeah,
wants
yeah,
to
I'm
get
just
in.
saying, on the flip side, same thing was happening. Not only were they, did our mutual friends or our acquaintances, they're telling me the same thing. "Oh, there's this really nice young lady you should meet." And I'm like, I'm cool.
Right.
At the time, I was going to school. I was a single parent. I was working like multiple jobs. I was like, I don't got time for all that, man.
Right. I ain't got time to be dating and going out on dates.
I was on a mission. And so,
Right.
and then so my mom would slip me like, "Oh, so, so-and-so gave me the number. You should call her." And I'm like,
Oh, so
think I
everybody was working at this.
Everybody
Okay.
was in on it.
I want to say we each threw each other's number away at least 3 times.
I was
Wow.
like, I'm good. So I didn't know that he was coming to our Christmas party. So a friend, I was going with her and her husband, and she called me at the last minute. She was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that he's going to be there." And I was like, "Who's he?" And she's like, "Ernie," because everyone calls him Ernie.
Right.
Ernie. And I was like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" I was so not enthused about the whole, meeting thing. And I was kind of mad. I was like, what? She's like, "Well, I just didn't want you to just show up and not know and blah, blah, blah." So my 2 cousins were at my house. I got off the phone and I told them. And so they was trying to make sure I look extra cute, so I can turn them down or whatever. And
right. That's funny.
We met at the I get there and he's there.
All I saw were, she has this beautiful smile.
Right.
All I saw was like, she had this slamming dress on. I saw boobs and teeth. And I was like, okay.
Oh man, why I throw that number away?
Right. That part. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Is this her?
Oh,
He always
man.
says that. Anyway, like I had on a hoochie dress. It was not a hoochie
Not at all.
dress.
It was an elegant, like cocktail dress, like even
Right.
like but I want to say it was like strapless.
It was.
See,
Anyway,
so
26
she knew you
years
was
later.
coming. So she was like, "Yeah, we about to do this
I
right."
already had the dress picked out.
That's funny.
So,
Wow.
we met, and it was not a match for me.
Mm.
It was not a match for me. So
I can talk. Look, you put me in a room with my shadow, I will hold a 4-hour conversation. I'll
You was
talk
just
to
talking.
anybody.
You was talking her out. She's like,
Bruh, I talked her out. I talked the table out.
yeah.
But me and her best friend got along great.
all right.
So I thought we did. And so I was just talking. Meanwhile, she was getting up, going to her little friends' tables, telling them, I don't know why they thought this was a match, because he's a nerd.
I didn't say that
He's
part.
adding it. He's adding that in there.
Did say I was a nerd.
I didn't say he makes it sound like I did say he was a nerd. And I was like, why do they think that we would even be a good match?
Wow.
But I didn't tell like everybody. I said that to 2 people outside of my family, So later on that evening, after it was over, I don't know why, but we just kind of sat there staring at each other, and Shirley says, so did you guys exchange numbers? And we said no. And she's like, well, exchange numbers. And so we were obedient children, and we exchanged phone numbers.
Wow.
I gave him my card, he gave me his, and he called me Wednesday. I was like, oh, okay.
So you waited, you did he did the 48-hour not going to call for a few days.
It was like a 72.
Oh, he gave you the 72. Okay.
I got a little time. But you know what? Truth be told, so Shirley was like, did you call her? Almost every day. Did you call her?
Right.
And so Shirley is her coworker, but it was my mom's best friend. So Shirley's been my auntie.
Wow.
So it got to a point where it was feeling a little disrespectful to not call. So.
And I was thinking that I was just off the hook, you know? So he called, we talked, then we talked again the next day, and he invited me to go to another celebration, his grandparents' anniversary. And I was like, oh, okay, he seems nice. Let me see if there's chemistry or whatever.
Because she had other friends that were going.
Yeah,
so
I did. So
it was an opportunity for her to catch me in my tuxedo because I was the MC.
Okay, yeah. So you was out there, you was ready. Like now you can see me when I dress up. I see.
Right.
Okay.
Let's turn the tables a little bit.
Right. Okay. See you in your element.
Second buddy. So we I felt like we connected that night.
That's good.
And then the next day was Christmas Eve, and there was a party at a friend's house. So he was invited to come. He came on Christmas Eve, and that night we sat in the living room area. We talked for like 3 hours. And after that, it was a wrap for me. I was like, if he asked me right now to marry him, I would say yes.
Wow.
I mean,
so what was it that just, what was it? Was it just an entire conversation, or?
It was an entire conversation, but it was also the values, because a lot of stuff that I had already said that I wanted, this is what I'm looking for in a mate.
Right.
And,
wow.
I never shared that with him. And a lot of it I kept to myself. I didn't share with anyone else. And even some of the things that I was like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to accomplish. These are the things I'm going to do. He started speaking to those. And I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Right. That's amazing.
It was amazing. It was truly amazing. I remember walking out to my car, and because I had my 2 nieces with me. I walked to my car and I was like, I'm gonna marry him. So
second date, really the first date. Pretty much. Or if you don't want to call it
the first date, that was
that first meet was just a meet and greet, and then
that was a meet and greet.
Right.
Yes, it was not a date. Thank you. Because he likes to call it a date.
It was a blind date.
It wasn't a blind date.
It was the first episode of our podcast is called Bamboozle, because that's exactly what we were. And then the second one was more of me flossing, trying to say, come check me out, whatever. There were some other women, in the crowd that it was all family. It was number family. That was there.
So that's where we got the truth and we got her story. I got you. Or I'm sorry, the truth and your story.
There you go. But what's funny is that I will say this: the first night I met her at her company function, I did call my cousin and tell him like, hey, I found the one. I'm gonna marry this girl.
Right.
And of course, his response was the same as my sister, because I called them and told them too a little bit later. And they're like, oh, okay, again. You found the one again, whatever.
Right.
So they never took me serious. But I just knew there was something about her and her spirit. And I know people always ask, how do you know? I mean, it wasn't neither of us were looking. Remember, we threw each other's numbers away.
Mm-hmm.
We were adamant about not the time.
You were focused. You had your goals. You're like, I'm going to school. I'm a single parent. Like,
she was balling. She was doing really
well. So Snooks, you was already in your career at this time, or?
Well, not really necessarily. So I've let me see. So the majority of my professional career has been mortgage banking.
Okay.
And I had done that for over 20 something years.
Wow.
So I was doing that at the time. And I just
it was in the 90s. So she was clocking.
She mortgages was the interest rates was like double digits.
Single parent dad going to school, working at Home Depot and UPS and umpiring games on the weekends to make ends.
Right.
She was making 2 to 3 times what I was.
Wow.
Lovey likes to say that it really wasn't 2 to 3 times. Maybe it was 1.5 to 2, maybe.
Right.
But another thing too is, so I knew that he had to be something special, because I had a deal breaker for me. I never dated anyone with children because I have single cousins, and there was always baby mama, baby daddy drama, and I was like, I just don't do that. But that was, when that didn't matter anymore, I was like, yeah, this is the guy.
Yeah. So it's funny, and I don't want to give away too much with my love story, my wife and my amazing queen, because I want to share that on your episode. But that's amazing, because like you're both like set on your goals and what you want, and you already have these deal breakers, and I did too, and I was in the same position, like really not wanting to date, but just I think what I'm hearing too is that you saw the value, you saw he was ambitious, he had goals, dreams, and these things were aligning with yours. And so making more money, because I think that's a great topic, because, money is the number one cause of divorce, right? So with that being said, like, obviously you saw something more than just, him working a couple jobs and whatnot. You want to speak on that a little bit, because I think women, especially my generation, right, need to understand, like, hey, it's not always, can't always take you to that nice 5-star restaurant.
Right.
So talk about that a little bit.
Well, so Lovey was totally different. We kind of cleared it up. I did think he was a nerd. I never dated a nerd before. But
was that a deal breaker or no? You were like,
well, apparently not. So
right.
But he was different, but he was also genuine. He was kind. He was very sweet, and I could see that he saw value in me also,
right.
And it wasn't about, like you say, the money part or whatever. I was raised by a single mom, and a lot of the women in my family were single. So number one rule is you take care of yourself. Gotcha. Don't look for no man to take care of you, because, they will disappoint and blah, 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 whatever. And that was really instilled in me. So I never was like looking for the bag from the guy.
Right.
I wanted someone who would cherish me and think I'm just everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Put me on that pedestal. That's the only way I could describe it. And he did that. I felt, and I still do feel, very cherished. It's like I'm fine china, and he does not let anyone, you can't go in your grandma's house and sit on the good furniture. You can go in the living room. Right. Don't mess with the china. That's just to be looked at. That's not for anyone to touch.
Right.
And Lovey has that hedge of protection around me.
I love that.
That makes me feel like, hey, this one means something. You know what I mean? And I never felt like that before, as far as in any other relationship.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly beautiful. What I wanted. And I said, like I said, I had everything written out of what I wanted. But, people tell you, oh, those kind of relationships, that you ain't going to never find nobody like that. You're not going to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, I will. Because this is what I want,
Exactly.
So,
yeah, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Can I clear the air a little bit?
Okay. Yeah.
because she keep, the whole nerd thing keeps coming up.
Right. I heard it a few times. I'm not. Hey, I wasn't gonna say nothing.
But she's not far from it. But the challenge is, so where I grew up was hood, for like, so the south side of Sacramento, and I feel as if where I grew up was rough, but my mom bent over backwards to make sure that I had a different type of education.
Right.
So it was like, okay, so catching the bus, going to this other school, this private school, then I would get bused right back home, and then kick with my friends in the street. And it's funny, one of her brothers, her older brother, always jokes about how so-and-so, and how we knew a lot of the same people. Now, my brother-in-law, God bless him, he was hood.
Right.
He kind of still is.
Kind of still is.
Okay.
Bro, he's one of them dudes that was just like in the streets all the time. And then so we chop it up, and he'd be like, "How do you know this dude? How do you know that?" I mean, he's like, "I don't get it. I never met you. I didn't see you." And I was like, "So I was that guy that was in. I'm like that hood nerd. I'm that dude that was in the crew. Right. In the group, we do certain things like we hoop, but when it was like, hey, we gonna go do this, I'm like, I'm going home. I'm like, because I had a bigger fear of my mom. Right. It was God. Like God was 1A, mom was 1B.
I loved it.
And so I was like, so when they were going left, I went right.
Right.
Knew the guys, we were cool. Anything goes down, I'm protected. Anything that happened, like I got them, they got me. I got them on a different level. I'm not picking nothing up. I got no heater, no nothing like that. But I would be the guy to be like, okay, look, this is about to go down. I'll call 911 to protect my friends. I'm probably perpetrating the most of it, but I would just go in the opposite direction. And they knew I wasn't about that life.
Yeah.
So knew enough to recognize stuff, but I had my own personality. And so I feel as if what she saw was definitely the nerd-ishism in me. Because I can go into any group and blend and be okay.
Chameleon.
But, I used to pride myself on that until I got a hold of the disc. But it's one of those things where knowing that, seeing that, knowing I can operate in any place, I felt comfortable in my own skin, but knew enough to where I could drop the bass in my voice when I needed to, and be a certain way. And I think that there was a difference. She saw like something a little different in me. Definitely wasn't my pockets because they wasn't deep.
It wasn't nerd-ish. It was just nerd.
Straight up nerd. She said there was no chase. It was straight nerd.
And I don't, but you know what? I don't say that in a derogatory way.
No,
People may take it that way. The nerd is the only thing that I could describe Lovey as at that point, because that was the first thing that came to mind. I was like, I mean, I didn't think Poindexter, I didn't think any of that, smart guy, but he was different. He was different,
So look, you guys are helping couples, right? You decided to start the podcast, Married into Crazy. We're going to have the links and social media handles in the bottom of the description. How did the podcast come about? That you guys are just like, what was it? What birthed the podcast and the calling to start that up?
Well, it's funny. So it's if I get to the root of how it all began, honestly, it goes back to what you referenced earlier. When after we met and we decided, oh yeah, this is definitely it. Remember, it was a blind date bamboozle situation.
Yep.
Nerd got game because we got engaged 4 months later.
Okay.
So 4 months later, I was on bended knee and she said yes. And within 5 days of her accepting my proposal, her estranged ex-boyfriend forced his way into her home while I was there.
Wow.
And attacked her. He and I got into it and I ended up getting stabbed. So he had a serrated steak knife and I got stabbed through the heart. Wow. I had to have 2 open heart surgeries. And there's all kinds of drama, stuff that went down after that. As you can tell, I survived.
Right. Praise God.
Right. Praise God. Because there was drama, family drama, recovery, the whole 9 yards. So there was a period where things just went down. It just it's not the way you want to start your marriage, right? And this is before we actually got married. We didn't get married till almost a year later.
Okay.
And because I had to recover and all that. And so all that went down. And then on top of that, 4 years later, I wasn't stepping up being the man that I was meant to be. So I was trying to please, my wife. I was trying to please my mom. I was doing all these different things but nobody was happy.
Right.
So she asked for a divorce. So we had to navigate that.
Wow.
And and try and fight through that. And there was no fighting. She was adamant. I'm done. Get out.
Yeah.
I didn't say it like that.
She pretty close. It was like she didn't say get out, but she was like, look, it was like
you got to go.
Look, She was like, you ain't gotta go home because I was here, but you gotta go somewhere.
You gotta go somewhere, right?
And
no, it didn't
but
happen
we battled back from that, and we grew from it. And then somewhere along the lines, we started counseling and coaching other couples in our vicinity that was in our proximity.
Right.
They would come to us, they gravitated towards us, and that's just what we did. And then we had a nephew that was kind of like our firstborn, so to speak, but he was our nephew, and he was like, y'all should like do a podcast or something. Y'all should be on TV.
Right.
Y'all should have a show. I was like, a show? He's like, yeah, y'all should have a reality show. Y'all funny. And I was like, boy, ain't nobody thinking about being on TV, you know?
Right.
He said that. And then at the time, Lovey was listening he always listened to podcasts. He would hold us hostage when we got in his car and we'd have to listen to podcasts.
I'm guilty of that too. My wife was like, what are you listening to?
So you got some nerd in you too.
I do. And I came from the streets and dabbled in a few things.
I learned to like them. And then it was just a matter of finding ones that I like myself.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I can get down with that. Okay. And he was really big on the Seekers to Success.
Right.
And
shout out to E.T.
Yeah. I started resonating with them, and I was like, okay, I could get behind that. I could listen to them. And
yo, what's up? It's your boy E.T. Look, if you're looking to, or you got to raise the bar on your marriage, you gotta click the link and get into Married and the Crazy, y'all. I'm telling you, this coaching is gonna take your relationship to another level. Now look, you already know you need to raise the bar. You know that already. So stop thinking or overthinking. Click that link, and Marriage and the Crazy is gonna take you and your spouse to marital bliss. Now you know. Click the button. Let's go.
Was listening to them, and they had the conference, the Take Control, was it? So they announced on their one of their podcasts that they were going to be in San Francisco, and I know he loved them, you know. So I was like, oh, I wonder if he would want to go to a conference. Right. And so I started looking it up and everything, and got all the information. And I asked him, I said, hey, E.T.'s coming to San Francisco. He's like, yeah, I know, blah, 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 whatever. I was like, do you want to go to the conference? And I mean,
he was like, yes, to go to the Super Bowl. He's like, wait, what?
See, and that, let me tell you how good God is, because that blew me away, because I wanted to go. I wanted to ask her.
Right.
But there was some scar tissue there, because I've also dragged her into every harebrained business, multi-level marketing idea that, you know. So I've dragged her to meetings. I've dragged her to business, and I learned that, you know what, I'm not going to ask her for anything else until I can start, proving something. So I wasn't even going to ask about that. But when she asked, I was like, that's crazy that she would bring that to me when I was trying purposefully not to even bring it up.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was like, then we're meant to go. So we go, and so we listened to Carl and all the guys. And I kept waiting for them to sell something to us.
Yeah. You're waiting for them to say, hey, come behind this door right here. Door number 1 is 500. Door number 2, 1,000.
Right.
You know how when you're a little kid and your mama tell you before you go in the store, don't touch, don't ask, because we ain't buying nothing. That was Lovey. He was like, okay, so we on the same page. Right when we got out of our hotel room, we're on the same page. We ain't buying nothing. We ain't joining nothing. We just come to listen, and that's it. I was like, okay. That's cool.
Halfway through, I'm like, well, how come they ain't trying to sell us nothing?
Right. You confused.
I was like, we ain't good enough. I mean, what's up? I mean, but it wasn't just us. I mean, and it was just different. They was just focused on being the best version of yourself, whatever your trade was, whatever you were doing. It was just, he wasn't selling nothing. It was just about you. And I have never, look, you got black men up on stage. Not trying to pitch anything and get you. At no point did I feel like I was getting got. And I didn't know how to act. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, but it was inspiring.
Yeah.
So on the way back home, we were in the drive. It's about an hour and a half drive back home to our doorstep in San Francisco. And I was like, you know what? We're going to start a podcast. Let's just start a podcast. And she was like, all right, whatever. You can start a podcast. I was like, no, we.
Yeah.
And she was like, all right, you figure it out. And I bought a book, sat there, and it was literally reading a book, press this button, I press that button. I'm going line by line.
Wow.
Trying to figure it out. And that was the end of August of 2018. Our first podcast literally was within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Had no idea what we were doing. And you
did you have the name or nothing, or you was just like, did you start off with the name or did that evolve?
So no, okay. So our nicknames are Snooks and Lovey.
Right.
And so that was the
show.
The Snooks and Lovey show. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the first 3, 4, 5 episodes, maybe. I don't know.
It was longer than that.
But
I was listening to this dude called the School of Podcasting, Dave Jackson.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like just devouring all his information. And this one day he said, look, here's the thing. If you tell somebody you have a podcast and they're next sitting and you tell them the name of it, and they're like, oh, what's the name of it? And then they ask you, oh, what's that about? It's not a good name. And I kid you not, every time I would tell somebody like, oh, you started a podcast. I'm like, yeah, what's it called? I'm like, Snooks and Lovey Show. They'd be like, well, what's that about?
Right.
And so it kind of hit me in the gut, like, ooh, nobody knows. And I'm not going to go deep into it. We had this family joke for all of us men that married into her family. I created this thing. I started this joke a long time ago with the fellas that we all married into crazy.
Wow.
And so it just clicked.
There it was.
There it was. I'm like, I'm changing the name. I even reached out to Dave Jackson, and he was very gracious. He responded, and he was like, that's a great name. I get it. Yes, that makes so much more sense. He didn't have to. He could have charged me, but he was just chopping it up. So
wow.
I changed the name like that, redid, some of our stuff, and it's been that way ever since because it fits. And then we changed, we morphed it because Married into Crazy, the phrase, even before we trademarked it, existed within our family. But then Snooks, and I were talking, and we changed crazy to an acronym to where it stands for something, not just the negative connotation of being crazy.
Right.
Yeah. So it stands for being married into.
So compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. So those are the 5 pillars of being married into crazy, because everyone should exercise compassion, keep it real, always be accountable, stay zealous, and always be yielding in your marriage.
Yeah. Wow. That's fire.
And we were doing that. And that's when ET started Extreme Execution Coaching. So I thought, you know what, I want to do that. So another brother and I that's out here on the West Coast, we couldn't make it back to the first couple that were live in Michigan. And then ET said that, and we were just getting involved, we were involved in Breathe University. And ET was like, we're going to do them virtual too. So we were one of his very first virtual.
Wow.
And it was just me and CB. It was like we're doing like we are right now. It was CB, myself, ET's son, Jalen, and E. We just sat here, the 4 of us chopping, and we got trained by him to be coaches. And then it started off with me, and I just coaching individuals, life coaching. And then eventually I told Snooks, you know what, you should really look at doing this. So when she did it, then it was like, okay, we're married into crazy. It's more than just our podcast. We're going to do couple to couple coaching on the Extreme Execution platform. And we just grew it from there. Then we got other certifications, and God has just been like, he's like, I've been having you do this. Now you need to just follow my lead, take my calling, and do what I ask you to do. And it's just taking off from there.
Man, I mean, that's powerful, because like, I'm thinking about it, like here you are listening to Secret to Success. You end up at this conference, and then here you are like doing basically a one-on-one with ET virtually with his son. I mean, that had to be like mind blowing, being able to get the hip hop preacher one-on-one like that, and just be able to ask questions and learn and stuff. And so shout outs to E, because like he did the promo video for Married into Crazy. You guys obviously established a relationship over the years. For those who don't know, that are listening to the podcast, they don't know what Extreme Execution Coach is. Kind of explain a little bit about that and some of the things you offer. Obviously sharing it with couples. Are you still doing like one-on-ones, or is it mainly y'all focus on couples only?
So I like to say that our jam is couple to couple.
Right.
Because when we vibe with another couple, it's not your traditional. So what we do is we do coaching. We don't necessarily do counseling.
Right.
There's a difference. We've had some additional training But we like to point out that we're like that couple that sits across from you at the barbecue, chopping it up. You vibe with us, and next thing you know, we're giving some advice. We're going back and forth, giving some pointers, some nudges here and there, but we're listening. We're non-judgmental. And it's just, the goal is to be that cool couple that we can always tap into and just kind of share and know that we're not getting judged. That's what we do. But we blend in our clinical training as well, because we're also certified with the Gottman Institute for the Gottman couples therapy method with them. And they're the foremost authority in the world when it comes to relationships.
Wow.
So we have that level 1, level 2 certification with them. So we bring that to the table. But extreme execution is this version of coaching, life coaching, that ET is really modeled. And there's about 40 of us worldwide. And I think that's right around the right number. And we utilize DISC training. And that was a form of, I hate to call it a personality index training, but it kind of is. But it was established back in 1928. And it was the very first part of behavioral psychology when the FBI and those guys were using for profiling. It was based on this type of training.
Right.
We use that not to profile anybody. So you're safe.
Right.
But we use it to improve communication, to help couples really talk. And it's so funny because so many people say, the crux, the basis for a good marriage is communication. And I argue that that's a great starting place, but it's not just the communication, it's the comprehension.
Right.
Because communication is talking. I mean, you can talk at each other all day long,
right?
But do you comprehend what the other person is saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this DISC assessment that you take, we train, we help you understand how to not just hear the person, but start to comprehend them and also understand yourself better.
Right.
So that's a major component of what we do to help couples comprehend each other better so they can actually be more in step and in line with each other.
Right.
Our website, it's at marriedintocrazy.com, but when you go there, it says you can actually book an appointment with us.
Gotcha.
It's free. And in that appointment, because we found that the feedback we received was that people felt overwhelmed by all the different things that we were offering. So it's like, let's just keep it simple. Let's just start with a conversation. Let's just chop it up and let's find out what your needs are. It's not about what we're selling you or giving you, whatever. It's like, we only want to provide you with what you want. So we want to meet every couple wherever they're at and then find out where they want to go and see if we can help them get there.
That's good. That's good. Hey, Snook. So how important is it for a spouse to, support their significant other in their dreams and their endeavors? My wife, shout outs to my wife. She supports me with the podcast and public speaking, even though I have the 9-to-5 career. But how important is it, right, to support your spouse? But then not only that, because you're in school getting your master's degree, so talk a little bit about that and how important it is.
It's essential. I mean, it's very crucial to have that support from your partner, because we don't want to go through this by ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
That can create tension in the relationship. And there's one thing that when we're together, we're like this. But when I'm going through something and I'm by myself, now we're apart. And all that space in between, that allows all kind of other stuff to get in there that we don't need to have be part of our relationship,
Right.
But I need that support. I need that. He's my backbone, and if I'm falling, I need you to nudge me back up, or, well, I don't know. Lovey's also a high D,
right.
He's a high I too, but he's a high D. So I'm like, do I really want,
Right. Hey, that's where we got that connection, Ernie. I see it now.
Don't ask. Hey, look, ask me the questions. I'll tell you no lies.
Right.
Because she asked for something. I'm like, I'm coming in. Like, okay, A, B, C.
Sometimes I don't ask though. It's my turn to talk anyway. So, but I mean, it's essential because it builds trust, and it also lets me know that you're here. You're on standby. If I need to tag you in, then I don't have to fight this dog by myself.
Right.
Even though I'm the one doing all the school work or whatever, if I know that you have everything else covered, that eases my mind. That lets me stay focused on what it is that I need to focus on. So now I don't have to think about 5 different things and my mind is all over the place,
Right.
So It's very crucial. And
I met Ernie through the Kings Accountability Group, and I'm supporting the shirt with our boys, our Kings.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's go. And so it's a we talk about accountability, and having an accountability group, having an accountability partner like yourselves. It's just important. One of the things I admire about you, and this is when I asked Ernie to get on the podcast, he said, my wife is going to be on, and I said absolutely. And so I love that, but also the mantra, and if you guys are willing to share that here on the podcast, that'll be amazing. If you want to share, because he said you guys printed it out, it's in the house.
Sure.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You start it?
Yeah, we're a happy, healthy, wealthy, compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding couple after the heart of God and each other.
Through our daily interactions as a husband, a wife, a parent, a sibling, a child, business owner, colleague, and mentor.
We see solutions where others see problems.
And because of that, we're a blessing to everyone we meet on a daily basis.
Amen.
Boom. Amazing. How important is it? Because now you guys are teamed up, right? And you got this mantra. Like, how important is it to have a mantra, have something that you guys stand for, your core principles?
I can talk now?
Yeah.
No, I think it's extremely important because, a mantra, we have one of the brothers that's part of the King's Accountability Group. He's really made a lot of us think differently, change our mindset to where it's one thing because a lot of us were really big on affirmations,
right?
Saying these nice things throughout the day, and changing your mindset. But he says, no, we got to go a step further. You need to create a mantra. You need almost like a core belief for you as an individual, because things aren't always going to go right. And you need to be able to revert back to something that when the world is telling you something else that's contrary to what you believe or contrary to what you're trying to accomplish, what are you going to use when there's nobody else around that you can say, that you can hold on to, that's going to help you stay on track to stay true to your North Star? What's your North Star? And he challenged us to each create a mantra of our own. He said the easiest one in the world that you'll probably remember is Muhammad Ali. His mantra was, I'm the greatest.
I'm the greatest. Mm-hmm.
That was it. He goes, and that's, if you talk about Muhammad, that, people think about him being loud and doing this and the other. He goes, but the whole world, multiple countries around the world knew him because he said, I am the greatest.
Right.
And he said it over and over again. And T challenges says, do you think he said that when he became the greatest? Or was he saying it when he was that guy that was in the ring that was getting pushed around? And he just kept telling himself that I'm the greatest till eventually the world recognized him as the greatest. Because you need something, that North Star, that's going to push you to do the exact same thing. When, you're starting off in a new job and somebody says, well, that's not your role. That's not your job. You need something that's going to tell you that I'm better than where I am right now.
Right.
And so we took it a step further and said, we want a mantra for our marriage. So we just morphed my daily mantra that she bought into. And we said, because she bought into it. She said, I like that. Let's make it ours. And so now it's ours. And we say that every single morning after we pray.
Man. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Very powerful. Listen, you guys are amazing. I just know, like, I'm a fan. I listen to the podcast. It's amazing. The couples you guys are bringing on. I look forward to getting on there with my wife. Before we go, I always ask my guests one thing that they would, a little tip, nugget that they'll leave for someone who's listening to help them turn their dream into a reality. So I'm going to ask both of y'all to share just a piece of advice that you want to share, whether it's in your marriage and they're trying to improve their marriage, or whether they're trying to go after their career, start their own business. What tip that you guys would like to leave for the audience before we go?
You first.
I think for me, it's don't settle. I think a lot of times we just settle for whatever, and we end up having mediocre jobs, having mediocre marriages, having mediocre lives or whatever. And we sit and we think about, oh, I wish I could have, or, oh man, I should have, would have. But it's like, well, you didn't because you settled.
Right.
Be willing to put the work in and do the thing.
Yes. I love
I think
that.
I would add, and this is for both, whether you're male, female, I think a big part of what we deem as being our success, and we got challenges too. Look, It's not like we don't have challenges. I think we just navigate them better than we did years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we're committed to the navigation of the challenges and getting into that. But I think it's be vulnerable. Everyone wants a relationship like, oh, I want to be happy and I want to have this beautiful, loving, joyous relationship. And we want you to have that as well. But it requires a level of vulnerability that many people aren't willing to have. And being vulnerable means you're opening yourself up to a lot of pain.
That's right.
Some disappointment. But you got to go through everything that you want in your marriage, honestly, is on the other side of that vulnerability.
That's right. That's good.
You got to go through that. So be vulnerable, be willing to be hurt, be willing to be that person that has to be the shoulder on which somebody is going to cry on. Be willing to cry on your spouse's shoulder. Show that vulnerability and don't be worried about being a punk or being whatever, or your friends are going to say that, she got you wide open or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Cause I told God, that's my ace.
Exactly. Right.
So who else am I supposed to be open with? Not with you.
That's why I love your podcast, because you're giving a platform for successful marriages, people who are getting on there, because it's not going to be easy. Right. You're going to face some pain. You're going to be hurt. There's going to be some sacrifices. Right. I know, when Snooks is doing her homework, you like, hey, where's my dinner at? I'm hungry.
That's funny.
Yeah, but no, that's amazing, guys. And I just appreciate you all for being on the podcast. I think you definitely shared some a piece of your story that's going to help encourage and empower couples and others that are going to look forward to their marriages. So thank you very, very much for being on the Desire to Dream podcast. I look forward to being on yours. And any last words before we go?
I just want to say thank you again for allowing us to be here and also just, seeing value in what it is that we do. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
And props to you, man. Cause I think so many people, don't know how to dream. And those that started, if they didn't have their North Star or their mantra, they forgot how to dream. So I love that you're challenging people, to dare to dream, to really get out there and be themselves, be who God says they are.
Yeah, I appreciate you all. Well, God bless you all, and we'll be in touch. Go check out Married into Crazy podcast. The link will be in there. Check out the website, reach out to them, follow them on social media. Well, once again, thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.